Hey, yo, we're back. We're back. Welcome back to my channel. I am Lamborghini underscore C, and I am just jumping in live. We'll see if we have any folks join us live. Others will catch this on the replay. But I wanted to just touch on a subject that has been on my heart. I've talked about, kind of the subject matter a little bit in some of my other lives that I've done surrounding business. But this is near and dear to my heart. And it's like a personal story that I kind of am living through as well. And that is the transition from corporate America into entrepreneurship, right? Again, it's been on my heart for some time to kind of just share my journey. I know that it's something folks are interested in, and it's a topic that needs to kind of, have someone deep dive into it, especially somebody that has lived it themselves. Because it's one thing to transition into entrepreneurship where, again, there's levels to this, right? There's one thing to transition into entrepreneurship where maybe you kind of were just getting started on your life's journey. You may not have been established yet. You may not have even really, like, if we're going to be honest about it, you may not even really have had a career, right? And so that's a different story and a different look than somebody that actually has a career that's going. They may even have a thriving career, but they have that urging inside of them. I am someone that truly believes that, again, with, many things in life, especially if we're successful, it's something that's in you. It's not on you, but it's in you. Like, I think if you're an entrepreneur, it's in you. It has to be, because it has to be in you to be able to sustain those rough periods, to be able to sustain the self-doubt, the haters, if you will, the people that try to come and discourage you from your dreams, sometimes because they're nervous or scared themselves to, make that leap or that step. And so a few weeks ago, I was talking to a friend kind of about the same topic matter, kind of beating a little bit around the bush, because again, I think with so many of us, there's that fear, right? We know that, in some instances, we may not be getting paid what we should in corporate America, or being treated right. Or we know that we have so much more to give and to offer as a contribution to this world, right? And especially if you're someone that's spiritual, you kind of know that, that you do have greater impact to make than perhaps a 9 to 5. And so that is burning inside of you, and that can create conflict, right? Because it's going to be fearful to step away from what you know and what's considered not only your norm but the norm of society, right? Because it's become the norm for society to have that consistency of, going to work, having that check that you can count on every week, or I'm sorry, for some people, for every week or every 2 weeks or even every month, if you're kind of in, some higher executive, type roles or what have you within organizations. But at least, like the next month, like it's going to come, right? But even that's getting a little bit shaky now. I just saw the news today where, again, Amazon did some more layoffs, some more restructuring. As I told you guys, these actions are coming. They're here, right? And so companies that want to make sure that they're setting themselves up for the future, they're taking those actions to make sure that they're right sizing and doing things that they feel will put them in the best space to be able to survive through the economic downturn, or I would say crisis, that is to come. And so that's what we're seeing, and that's what's going on. Now, it is amazing to me. There's people that still have their heads buried in the sand. There's people that are still in denial. There's people that, I was at a conference a few weeks ago. I was down in Miami, and, and I'm not going to put this on Miami, but it was this particular conference, and there was a young lady on the stage speaking, and she said, "Oh, I think we'll probably have a slight recession." And I was thinking, "Oh my God, this poor baby don't even know We're in it, honey. We're in it. It's here. And so, again, it's interesting as you listen to different people's perspectives, and then some of that as well is as you travel throughout different socioeconomic class groups and structures. I was meeting with somebody earlier this week. I'm telling you, since I got back from Miami, I've been like just on the go. I've been running like, a lot of in-person meetings, lunches, and quote unquote coffee sessions. Well, I don't even drink coffee, but again, you have to network, right, when you're in business for yourself. And so one of the discussions that I was having with an individual, we were just talking about how business is going for them. And she was sharing how things have gravely slowed down. And her business is one of, I would say, of a luxury. It's more high-end luxury, um, leisure, like optional. Okay. She does interior design. And most of her clientele happens to be kind of that upper middle, upper class, right? And so one of her, observations has been that one, her business is slowed, and it seems, oh, look at my baby Diamond back there. Hey, Diamond, say hi. Hey, Pooh Bear. But one of the observations that she recognized or noticed was that in her assessment is that her most of the clientele, they actually are holding on to their money. And she said that she talked to another friend of hers, and this friend of hers is actually a financial planner, which was interesting, because again, like she's a financial planner, right? So it's interesting to get kind of her perspective. My view in dealing with just some of the bankers, right, and financial planners, anytime like, we talk about like, my views again is just that I see, kind of where the economy's heading. I think for some individuals, they don't want to face the fact that, things are changing, in some respects negatively, that there will be a shift. And so I think they do want to just bury their heads in the sands and try to think positively, right? As opposed to facing the reality, because especially if you're working for a corporation, who wants to think like, oh my God, like, I have to watch and see if my company does cuts or what have you. Or from the perspective of, with a financial planner, you don't want to put your clients on alert or scare them and have them begin to like start just pulling all their money out of the market either. So sometimes I think they are, they're driven from that perspective to not really, what I like to say, face reality, right? And so this individual actually, I think, was very in tune and honest, about what's going on. So her friend who's the financial planner actually shared with her, well, you have to look at it from this perspective. Most of your clients are those upper middle, upper class folks. They travel. They're not just in their little hometown, in their little bubble. They actually are out, whether it's for work or it's been for leisure. They have been traveling. They're in the marketplace. They're traveling. They're getting outside of their normal surroundings. So they're getting different perspectives and different vantage points, right? Because everything is all around vantage points. Because my vantage point from 5'4", I used to be 5'5", I thought, but about 5'4" and some change compared to, my boo's vantage point over 6 foot, it's different. Okay. Our vantage points, like just, we can be looking over across into the ocean, right, out of a window or what have you, a balcony. It's going to be a different view, right? Because the level at which I'm able to see things is different than him, right? And so, so naturally, again, that vantage point may be a little bit different. So I say that to say for individuals that are traveling and out and about and in the world, or even traveling across countries, right? Our perspective and vantage point is going to be different than that of somebody that, has had the comfort of just staying in their small town, in their bubble. I will tell you, just even like going to Miami, like this last time, like I stay in Brickell, which is, it's a little more pricey. I like it. And I like it because of that, because it is a little bit more put together. It's not like the touristy, like South Beach party, like young kids type of crowd. There's youngsters in Brickell, but they getting it. It's a lot of like young entrepreneurs, a lot of the e-commerce guys and things that you see on social media and YouTube, IG and things like that. You kind of see them, they're getting it in, like business wise. They are just phenomenal. And I was teasing a friend this week, who sent me an article about like the cost of living being so expensive, like in Miami. Honestly, that's one of the reasons I go. Like I went, I was hustling. I was there for business, for a conference. I actually ended up getting a client, signing a client from that conference. I stayed in town because I wanted to stay another like 5 or 6 days. And I stayed in Brickell, ended up closing another client. So I may need to just be there and spend more time there, because it's almost like survival of the fittest. Like you have to hustle, like you have to be able to make it. It's like you're either going to make it so you can eat, like so you can have like the basic necessities taken care of, right? But you're in the midst of paradise. So after you get through kind of, grinding it out, you can go over to the beach, and spend a few hours, or go to, most of the time you're staying in some condo apartment building or what have you, that's set up like a premier hotel anyway, right? So you can go down to I closed that client. It was a Friday. Closed that client. I went for my walk. I went to Brickell. I do these hour and a half walks, put on my headphones and just explore just the beauty of of the area. Came back, showered, and then went down to the pool and got some some of my, what I call my water therapy, right? And so it was interesting being there, because I did notice the increase in prices for food, for groceries, right? Because I was at the condo. I went ahead and I ordered groceries and had them delivered to the condo. And I noticed like a couple days later, I was running low on my toothpaste. And so there's a drugstore right up the street. So I walked up there and just grabbed a tube, and that one tube of toothpaste was like $9. So at first I was confused, because I said, I don't think this is right. But that was really the price. And so when I got home, I had to like look it up online, because it really perplexed me. So I was like, did I just pay $9? I don't think this is right. Normally I think it's like 7 something here, which still is too much. But no, it's like everything. Like bread, because I ordered some bread, some eggs, some bacon, salad, stuff to like for Caesar salads. Everything was much more expensive. Right. And I think I got it from Publix. Like it wasn't like a Premier or like one of these boutique like grocery stores, which like here, if I do go myself and shop, like I go to like the gourmet like grocery store, unless I'm having groceries delivered. So even there, like I know it's going to be it might be a little bit more expensive, but by a little, I mean, it's like some change, like, more expensive. But I'm telling you, this trip in Miami Brickell, like the food, the groceries seemed more expensive. I didn't notice or pay as much attention to like with the restaurants. Like it didn't seem as glaring, because I guess I kind of expected anyway. But I say that to say the economy is changing and shifting. And again, I think those that have been able to enjoy being able to get around outside of their normal surroundings, talk to new people, understand what's going on in their neck of the woods, they have a different perspective and vantage point, right? They have more exposure. And that's what it's all about. And so they know and understand, hey, some things are happening. And especially, again, the vantage point from, if you're like working in the plant, like on the line, your vantage point is different than some of the executive managers in some of these corporations, like in automotive, because I guarantee, well, I can't. Well, let me just say this because I don't want to um, misspeak or what have you, or get people too worried. But let me just tell you, I guarantee you right now, those managers and executives have a whole different vantage point. There's meetings that are going on and being held that you have no knowledge of. Okay. And they're sitting scrambling and trying to figure out how they're going to tweak and make it work. And so, for a lot of these companies, again, like the thing that people don't realize, and I share this with you just as somebody who has been in those roles, in corporate America, that again, usually like the planning for these types of actions, it takes at least a few months or what have you, because there's different employment laws and things that have to be followed, notifications that need to take place. You do want to do some checks and balances, and and kind of not only run some numbers, but you want to make sure, or you should make sure, that you're not just cutting across the board, but you're cutting where it makes business sense, right? And that you don't have disparities from a diversity or an inclusion perspective, and so there's checks and balances to make sure that those things aren't happening. And so those individuals, again, this woman's clientele, at least the again, because that's how it is in like this community, right? Like they think they're back in, it's like the 1950s, right? So a lot of the wives stay home, and the husbands are at work in the marketplace. So some of the spouses, like they might not even be aware similarly of what's going on, like their husbands, like the spouses, right? Who are in these corporations, who are hearing the whispers, or they're being put into meetings and they're being asked certain questions, right? How is that project coming along? You think we can slow down that project? Who's working on that project? You know, who would create an issue if they came in and told you they were quitting today? Like, giving away secrets, but those are some of the questions that we start asking, right? Um, because we're trying to collect data, because we need to know and understand, like I said, if we need to do some restructuring, where we can restructure without hurting the company as a whole. And so I say that to say, I think that, there's an awareness now, or there should be. No particular roles are safe. I think that in the past, I can tell you many, many years ago, like I entered into the market space post grad school back in 2003. And those that were around them then they know and understand that the economy was going through a downturn as well. And maybe that's why my awareness is heightened, right? Because I've, kind of lived and maneuvered through a few of these in the corporate space. And so when I entered into corporate America, for the first, I would say 6 years, I got really good at reducing shifts and closing plants. And so I have a keen skill and ability for restructuring. Okay. That became an expertise of mine, right? And one of the things I am proud is that I feel like I was able to hone a craft or skill of doing that while still leaving people with their dignity, because it's never an easy task to have to inform someone that their job is going away, right? Especially when it's no fault of their own. And it's not that they were necessarily a bad performer, but that the company actually has to make some changes and adjustments. And so, I bring this up because, like, when I looked at the announcement in the news around Amazon today, the focus areas that they actually reduced were human resources and their cloud um, division or department. And so, I think about my, those fellow HR folks. And I encourage them as I encourage everyone. I encourage those who are in my life. I've talked to some individuals privately, we've had phone calls. Again, I really just think that I think we're past the age where you can just count on a corporate job. I think you need to have other investments and other streams of business. And I would even venture and garner to say, and I lightly say this because it is a lot of pressure, even in business for yourself. I feel like you need to have multiple businesses. The key is multiple streams of income. Now, the key also is to make sure that they intertwine somehow, some way, so that there is some overlap. So you don't feel like you're just completely pulling yourself so thin, right? There should be some synergies, right? Where you're able to have some, task or what have you, or the skills that are necessary to run one business are transferable into another business or what have you. Otherwise, you do run the risk of burning yourself out, right? And imagine trying to do that and still hold a corporate job, because the reality is that many in corporate America, they don't want you to have something else going on. They want your job or your career to be the end all be all. And why is that? Because that creates control, right? Because no matter how miserable you might be, I remember someone sharing with me that every Sunday, and again, this was a grown adult man with a family and children, okay? And sharing with me that every Sunday, he would get, start feeling like he was coming down with the flu. He was using that as kind of a metaphor or what have you. But it was just the fact of knowing that, like, oh my God, I have to go into work, or even not even into work, just log on to the Zoom and face, like certain bosses and things like that, or work in toxic environments, right? Or be downgraded or mistreated, all under the guise of this check, this career. And again, some, and this happens to individuals that are paid extremely well, right? The multiple six figures that are being paid salaries that some people will never get to see. They'll never touch that kind of money, stock options and all. But again, you don't know what they're putting up with to get those checks, right? Now, I'm not a proponent of, some people try to, throw those narratives out there as to say or give the excuse of why they don't go after, higher heights. I say that to say, again, you don't know what someone else is putting up with, but I'm here to tell you, you can see those numbers on your own, where you're able to have your own dignity if you take the time to build, right? And it's going to take time. And so there's some things, I'm just going to touch on a few that, again, like, as I reflect back, that have helped me. Even though my experience, again, I still wanted to have my one foot in, one foot out, right? But the reality is I would not be able to be as far as I am in my business today if that were the case. There would have been no going to Miami for 10 days, right? If I was tied to a corporation, especially if I'm there under the guise of building my own business. It is interesting, right? Because it's like when you are in the corporate space, it's almost like people can sniff out, like, I think you getting some money from somewhere else. Like, it would be so bad. Like, if I showed up with a new belt or a new pair of shoes, like, they would be on it. Like, oh, you got a new outfit? It's like, oh my God. Like, every move you make, they're watching, right? And again, there's just some people that, because the reality is they may have some dreams or have had some dreams and wanted to step out, right? But they let fear take over and they talk themselves out of it. So for some individuals, when you are going after dreams that they failed at, or dreams that they were too scared or nervous to, step out and go after, they begin to despise you. Like it's this weird relationship thing kind of starts happening there. And so that's one of the reasons, again, I want to touch on this, right? Because I think that, there is a way for you to start your own business while you're still in corporate America without necessarily jeopardizing your corporate career. And here are a few things, right? I think that you need to do. One, I think that, again, like having some of those synergies, taking a look at some of the skills that you've been able to build and put in your toolkit over the many years, doing an assessment of like what you're really good at. Like, what is it that I'm really, really good at? Am I a great connector? Am I great at speaking? Am I great at training and development? Like, what is it that I am really good at, that I have a niche in? And identifying those things and really focusing on growing those skills. Now, one of the things that you should be doing is, again, take advantage of, and, not from a negative perspective, but again, there's opportunities in many of these corporations to increase your education. Like oftentimes they have programs, or they will pay, or they may bring people in-house for leadership training and development. Always make sure that you are on the list for those things, right? Especially when the company's paying for it. There's phenomenal speaking and leadership training that I got over the years that, again, I didn't know back then how it would help me in this phase of my life, right? As I am out and about and networking and building relationships with other entrepreneurs, I can see the difference, right? And that difference is the training that was poured into me, right? Albeit I may not have understood back then how it would benefit me. It's been interesting to me. I've taken on kind of the moniker or the name, the HR Whisperer, with one of my, my companies. I have my HR consulting firm, Edmund Enterprises. We're at Edmund, EDMUND-enterprises.com. And it's interesting to me because for years, since I was a little child, I was always shunned and joked on and talked about for my low speaking voice. And I was sharing this with somebody yesterday, because again, I actually had 2 back-to-back lunch meetings yesterday. But I was sharing with somebody, I said, it's amazing, like how God works, right? Because the very thing that I was ostracized for or shunned at, God uses it. That's how I make my money. I make my money from talking, from my mouthpiece, right? From me being this shy little girl and teased and, oh, you can't. Somebody even tried to tell me one time, like, and that was, I think they were trying to hate, but they said something about me, like, oh, you're being mousy or whatever. Like I said, people will look at you and they'll see the success on you and they get mad. They're really mad at themselves. So they'll try to say little things to dig at you, and you got to just let that stuff kind of roll off, because the joke is going to be on them, right? Or on the enemy, right? That they're letting use them to try to discourage you, because you'll look up years down the road and those very things that they tried to point out to you as negatives will be what God uses as your footstool, or what he uses to bring wealth into your life, right? And prosperity, or the very thing that he uses, more importantly, the attributes he uses for you to be able to reach people and to be able to help other people bring their dreams to fruition. And so, again, like it's interesting to me because, like I said, all of that leadership training, all of, again, just some of the things that I went through in corporate America, even like the networking and things like that, those things all prepped and prepared me, right? Even like for the last week and a half, when I was in, at that conference in Miami. Again, like there's a period of time that I can recall or remember, I would never just fly out by myself to a conference, right? With probably like almost 1,000 people or so. And, a segment of those people, being kind of in an elite class where they're actually able to invest millions into the companies, and just prance my little self up and introduce myself, right? Like by myself, not me and my crew, just like, me by myself, just out there getting it, right? And so that has developed over the years, and again, it has been, through some of those roles in corporate America. I'm extremely proud of my career. I'm extremely proud of the good times. I'm extremely proud of the, and thankful for the experiences where they weren't so good, where individuals were wrongly, mismanaging me, where they were wrongly attacking me, where they were wrongly setting me up for failure. Because at the end of the day, God gets the glory, right? And it's again because going through those obstacles and those scenarios, it prepares me in the business space. I can recognize when people are being false or where they have a mask on. I can recognize where somebody is setting up a scenario to not work in my favor, right? And now I'm at a point in time, and some of it is because I'm managing a couple different businesses, and I don't have the time for it. I don't have the time for it, and I don't have the patience. And anybody knows me. The two things you can do to get yourself out of my life quick, fast, in a hurry is try to steal from me or lie to me. All right. And now I'm in a space where I don't even again, the energy. I'm not even interested in putting the energy into confronting you. Because why? Most of the time you're online, right? So what are we doing? I know what's what. I know, once I recognize, I know what's going on. So now I just know how to deal with you, right? And so, I'm not into all that drama. I have my energy is being placed into growing, right? Into helping other people grow their businesses and their ideas, and being connected with like-minded people. And so, again, I encourage everyone to really take inventory of those skills that you've built over the years, and identifying, again, those gifts. And those gifts are going to be the things that come to you naturally. One of the things that I coach executives with, especially when I was in corporate America, and I've done some of that since leaving, is really just stop and assess what your brand is. We all have a brand. And some people fail to realize that, right? Because they think, well, I'm not in business for myself. I'm not selling anything. No, your brand is you. It's how you show up. It's how you deliver. Can people count on you to be late all the time? Sometimes, honestly, with me, it's something I have to work on. But can people count on you to show up game on, put together, ready to present? Can they count on you to have knowledge when you get up to speak before them, where they're going to walk away having learned something? Again, you have to identify what those things are. And I'm still learning, right? It's interesting because, and I've been taking note, over the last month or so, I've had several occasions. Again, I go back to this speaking, right? Because that was something from the time I was a baby, a little 4 or 5-year-old kid, right? All my life being attacked about my speaking voice, or we can't hear you, speak up, we can't hear you. Now I have people praising me. I have people stopping me in meetings or after meetings, or stopping me mid-sentence, letting me know I feel like I could just listen to you talk all day. And again, I know that I'm a spiritual person. I know what that is. I know that is because that is God working through me. Right. And that's why they're having that reaction, because I'm sure there's a calmness that's coming over them. And perhaps I'm even being led to speak on some things that they've been contemplating or wondering about, or, wanting information, or the way in which I'm able to explain to them. It's in a manner of which they're actually able to receive the information where they may not have been able to receive it before for many years. And so, again, it's phenomenal to me, right? Again, and an example of how God will use those, those traits. So keep those things in mind. But again, starting your own business while working in corporate America, again, it can be challenging. It can also be rewarding. And so some of the useful tips that I pulled out that, again, I had to keep in mind while going through it myself were that you need to assess your financial situation. Again, and these are things to make it as stress-free as possible. Before you start a business, you need to have a solid understanding of your own current financial situation. And this includes your monthly expenses, any outstanding debts that you may have, and the amount of money that you can realistically set aside for your new venture. And this is important because when you're just starting out, in most cases, you're going to be funding your business. Okay. And so we need to face that reality. You need to have some extra reserve on hand. So maybe leading up to that point where you do want to start your own business venture, you may want to maybe pick up some extra hours at work, or maybe pick up another side gig. Like I know some people that are in corporate roles and they do DoorDash or Uber, right? And so, and again, it's phenomenal, right? To talk to those individuals, especially like Miami. Like you always meet, sometimes people are out and about and they might have just come from dinner, especially like with one of like the nice restaurants or something. And so they're in the area, like I may be going, to one of those places. And because they're signed up with Uber, they just decide, you know what, I'm just going to turn on my whatever thing. I don't know how they work it, but there's something they turn on that alerts Uber that, hey, they're willing to drive, and then they can connect and pick you up or what have you. And so, it's interesting because, again, they're just doing it for, some extra spending money or what have you, or they might be setting those funds aside for their next business venture. The other thing too, I can tell you, one of the things that helped me was the fact that I had gotten myself, I was gradually, and some of it wasn't even intentional. It truly was God. And it was the prayers of my grandmother. Thank you, my grandma, Margie Stewart, right? Years ago, when I first joined corporate America in my 20s, after grad school, I was with a very prominent auto company, and it was a proud moment for my family. And, it was hard too, right? It was hard being a young African American female in automotive, which is male dominated, and being an attractive female. Especially, many of the roles were for me in plant locations. So again, being young. So the significance of that, being young in that world, thrust into that world, and Black, where a lot of the people that worked at the facility as like the hourly employees, a lot of times they were like the age of my grandparents, right? Again, some people had their views, like they weren't open to the fact that some young Black girl actually had the power to fire them. Because we talk real on this channel. And they just had decided, and they just weren't going to take orders from some young Black girl, right? And then you had others who were your colleague that just didn't feel like you deserved, to be able to work alongside of them, right? So their whole world was shook. And when they started to see that you were starting where their career was ending. So think about that. Catch that one. And so I put up with some stuff, okay? Not to mention having to help because you're in a plant facility. So there's things I did even to like altering my appearance and things like that in the plants because I knew like I was shapely. I know in my family, like we have large breasts, right? And so I've always been conscious of, again, I think when you recognize certain things or traits, like you have to recognize and assess the environment that you're going into, and you have to address that appropriately, right? And so for me, because I didn't want to be a distraction or take the distraction away from me doing business, which is why I was there. So I would purposely buy my clothes bigger, my shirts and things like that, so that they weren't showing or accentuating my curves. And I know one of my cousins who's in HR as well, she did the same thing, right? And again, it's those little things kind of in the back of our mind that, again, we're tweaking, doing all this extra stuff, right? And um, so again, like my grandma, she was my best friend, and so we would talk all the time, and so she was privy to a lot of the stuff that would be going on, kind of in the workplace and what have you. And she always used to tell me, I'm praying that one day God is going to remove you from the world system, and you're not even going to have to depend on that job, that you're not going to have to even be there. And it's interesting because that has been for this past, like since the beginning of the year, even late last year, it's like God keeps bringing that to my memory. He keeps placing me back her, into her dining room area with her, sharing those thoughts with me and declaring those things over me as I was in my 20s. And, and he's showing me how you're here. You're here, right? I told you I was going to I was going to remove you from the world system, right? And he literally has, right? And I recognize he started doing that even when I was in the corporate world, because there were several years ago, he'd moved me to a point financially where, like, again, even with me being in HR, I didn't even pay attention much to payday. Like I knew our schedule, we pay every 2 weeks or what have you. But it didn't matter. In some cases, I would have mortgages because I always had a couple of different properties and things like that too. Like mortgages would be paid 2, 3, 4 months in advance. And some of this was happening by happenstance because they was working me like a Hebrew slave. I remember one month I messed around and I paid my mortgage 3 times. And again, didn't even feel it, from a financial perspective. And I looked up and then, paid my car note like 3 times, because that's just how much like they had me running and just under stress, where I couldn't even think straight. But I say that to say that, again, he had already started to transition me to a point where, again, I didn't even look for those checks. I remember one company got mad at the automotive. I'm not gonna say their name because they're going through some distress. But the automotive company, I left them to take on a better position, paying more. And I don't know, I think there was some drama too that led me to actually leave, to even within the high up HR ranks. It was a little drama. And so Netta had to bust a move on them that they weren't expecting. And so I think that some folks took, I don't think they took too kindly to that, because how dare you have options, right? And so I looked up, had joined the other company. I joined Marathon Petroleum. So I'm working for the oil company. And again, just a different environment because they had money. I had spent like the first 8 years of my career in automotive where all I was doing was closing plants, reducing shifts, got really good at restructuring, right? Eliminating positions, letting people go. And so to step into a world that was thriving and growing and doing really well financially, where, if my engineers had a project and they needed more help, I was so, okay, go hire some more people, and I was able to start many new programs and do a lot of good work there, for the company and in the community. And so I literally was sitting at my desk in my new office, and one morning it dawned on me, I don't think you got your last check from, the other company. And so I looked and I was like, oh my God, I never got my final check. They're supposed to cut you a check for your final pay out your vacation and all that kind of stuff. And had never received it. Do you know they held the check they claimed that they had to do some investigation, and I didn't get those monies for 3 months. I said the devil is a lie, right? People will try to mess with you, right? This corporate thing is no joke, right? And so again, it was kind of like, during that period is where um it wasn't as glaring to me, but I can look back and realize that God was like slowly pulling me off of the quote unquote world system, or dependent on like a check, or sitting waiting like, ooh, okay, I get paid next week, I'm gonna do XYZ. Honey, regardless if the check was coming next week or 3 months from now or 4 months from now, my needs were being met, right? And so, even that much so, in the more recent years, did that start to occur. And I bring that up because, again, I share about like that first point of assessing your financial situation. And that is what has sustained me over like this last year has been a full year of me only working my business and growing my business, right? And so, and that hasn't even been consistent income. Like when you have a business, especially like consulting, you're counting on gigs. And then for the larger companies, when you're doing work with them, like the checks may be bigger, but it may take longer for them to cut the check because, again, it's still going through that system. And you have to sustain. If you still have mortgages, you still have a lifestyle, that you're living and that you need to provide for, I'm not trying to enter into this struggling, and I know that's not God's will for me, and for some individuals for whom that's their story, again, that's their story, but I know that's not what God has for me. And I've had to rebuke and even kind of just tune off my ears from some individuals. They want if they had a struggle story, sometimes they want their struggle story to be your story too. And that's not over here, because we prosperity and abundance. I'm very clear on the mantle that's on my life. And so this has been, I tell people, I am a walking, talking miracle, if you ever want to see one, because this clearly has been God, right? Because there's no logical, humane explanation for how I've been able to not only sustain, but my standard of living has increased. Like God has raised and increased my standard of living, my experiences. I haven't flown, but like earlier today, I know one of my friends will tease with me, but I was sitting trying to think like, what's the class level below the next class below first class? Because I haven't over the last year, I've only flown first class everywhere I've gone. Sometimes when I called myself, I think comfort, I called myself trying to fly comfort, and then I end up getting upgraded or whatever, right? And again, like, yes, it's nice, but there's some significance around it because, there is something to being in the right place at the right time. And sometimes there's some people that you need exposure to, or people that need to speak into your life or expose you to a different thought process. Sometimes you need to see how some people are living, because when you're just in your neighborhood where you might have some people, or even, like with property, it's like, like, yeah, I guess I'm classified as a millionaire or whatever, but it's a different conversation and vantage point from the individual who late last year, when I was flying, I had flown out to do some business for a company like that day and flew back that night, who I was sitting next to, who had a couple businesses worth over $250 million in several different countries, including South Africa, right? So again, the conversations and the vantage point from his perspective on some things was different, and one that was not in my immediate reach, right? And so again, that came about because I happened to be in the right place, which was sitting in my seat on my flight coming home next to that individual. And so again, I reflect on that, and I know it's not me. I know that it is God, and and His favor that's on my life, right? But I can see how He prepared me from a financial perspective and got me off of that whole mentality of looking for your next check in order to be able to survive. Again, the next thing that you're going to want to do is identify your passions, because you have to truly figure out what you're passionate about, because you need to have your why that really keeps you going. I had transitioned to, before I, kind of was pushed into the water to look sink or swim mode. I had started to, I'd lost my father, and I started to assess what I wanted for, my career, because my career before the role and company I was with just before that, I was mishandled. I was mistreated. And I couldn't even believe how that whole situation went down. And I couldn't understand why God allowed me to go through that, right? And it was really something to me. And so, but everything happens for a reason. One of the things that I got out of that was that any role that I took following that needed to have meaning. I was at a stage and point in life where that was important to me, even that much more so than the money that was being thrown at me. And so that led me to the company that, nice, ironic, I actually have the shirt on, that I ended up joining, right? And I took a little bit of a pay cut because my needs were met. Like, God was greatly supplying all my needs. He always brings opportunities, whether it's an he had brought an opportunity into my life that I was able to build up by the time I took that role, where I had taken a little bit of a step back in pay that was netting me about around $1,000 a week in passive income on top of the corporate career. And so again, it allowed me to be able to do that transition naturally and without stress. More importantly, it allowed me to feed my soul, because I was doing work that mattered and that was helping change other individuals' lives. And God used me in that role, even with my immediate team, to be able to be a light, to be able to help some of them grow and encourage them. And so, again, it fed my soul, right? But also provided for my needs financially as well. So find your passion. And then you do want to create a business plan. You really want to sit down with someone, or you can use some AI technology like ChatGPT and build out a whole business plan. Like, ChatGPT wasn't out when I first started this business a couple years ago. And so I literally had to, along the way, kind of build out that strategy, right? Or the business plan. And I'm still, like, even now, I'm still getting more clarity around, like, truly who my company is, right? It's definitely expanded beyond what I thought initially when I first started my LLC. And that will happen as well, because again, you'll get exposure to individuals. You'll come into knowledge of things that are possible. You'll come into knowledge of your expertise and shock yourself sometimes with the skills that you didn't even know that you had, and the abilities, right? So you do want to have a business plan put together, so you kind of know where you're going and you have that true plan and journey. I definitely encourage that. And I think, model that with your career, right? So that you can make sure that you have those checks and balances and you're able to measure that you're on the right path. One of the things that, again, like, I think over the years, I would find myself in these scenarios where I would, get started on something along a journey, and then it's like my corporate career would pick up and start taking off. And again, like you're getting performance ratings, your compensation is tied to your performance. So you don't want to mess up there. And so I would always find myself in this struggle of, um, where do I devote my time, or not wanting to mess up my corporate career, right? And so again, I think that as you are build your strategy and your business plan, sit down and really like write out your goals for your business so that you can hold yourself accountable. And I say that because there's times where I let my corporate career overtake my overall goals, right? And I do have some regrets around that. However, I know that everything happens in timing, and most importantly, in God's timing. You're going to want to make sure you get your ducks in a row. So you're going to want to make sure that you talk to a business professional that can help you with permits and licensing that's needed, and most importantly, getting insurance in place. Like especially if you're providing any consultative services or you're doing any type of coaching or counseling, there's certain insurance that you need to have in place. There is an omissions, right? If you're going into a business like the type of work that I do, it's so important that you have that. I had to learn some of these things along the way. And so that's why I'm sharing them, like today, so that you guys will have that information. You're also going to want to keep it quiet. Now, this is something that, I had to learn too. Like, again, sometimes it's hard because sometimes you'll shock yourself at your achievements and you want to share, or you think people are close to you or that they'll root for you. But like I said, they may root for you initially, and then sometimes they will turn on you because they will start to see like, oh, you're going to get away, like you're going to escape, or they actually may really be happy for you, and they may go and say something to the wrong person, to somebody who doesn't think it's a great idea that you have these ambitions. What do you think you're doing? You know? And so you just want to keep it quiet until you're ready to leave your corporate job. So again, it's best to keep your business plans to yourself. This is going to help avoid any potential backlash from your boss or coworkers. Now, I'm going to share with you some insights and things that I've seen happen and take place in the corporate world, right? As the HR whisperer, because again, there's some bad things that happen, in that space because we're dealing with individuals. Like I said, some people will think like, what does she think she's doing? And they won't think it's a good idea that you have this business. If they get wind of that, I hate to say it, but you will have individuals that will essentially try to set you up, right? They will start creating a hostile work environment, where you may have been a top performer in the past. Now you just can't do anything right. And imagine this, right? Again, I know some people may say like, oh, I would never be in that position, or I would just sue them. They can't do that. But honey, let me tell you, when somebody starts messing with you in that way, it can throw you off your game. I have seen several instances, and I've had it done to me, where you start having someone nitpicking at everything that you're doing, and you will start questioning yourself. I saw this happen to a young lady, a Black woman, right, in an organization that I was in. At the time, I was getting ready to leave that organization. She wasn't part of my group that I serviced from an HR perspective, but I was able to be close enough to kind of see what was going on. And of course, because I can't ever stay quiet, I had to challenge some things because I saw they were messing with this young lady, right? To the point where, yeah, she did start to make some missteps and, mess up on some assignments or miss some deliverables and things. But could you imagine, like, if you have this hostile work environment and someone's antagonizing you, they're talking about the way you speak, you're mispronouncing words, and just everything, right? That becomes stressful. And so it is possible for individuals to create these obscure and these hostile environments where you're not performing your best and you're not, at your peak performance. So don't get it twisted. Don't fool yourselves and thinking, oh, that can never be me. Because let me tell you, imagine like even at some of the highest like roles, or with some of these pay ranges where people only dream of. Like I said, some folks will never even touch some of this money, right? Imagine being in some of these types of roles. And again, in this world, like you might be the only person of color in that whole department. So already you're an anomaly. You're not part of the clique. You don't necessarily fit in. But imagine if you looked up and you weren't being invited to meetings, or you get to work on Monday and you find out, oh, everybody was over at they had a brunch or a golf outing on Saturday, and everybody else in the department was invited, but you weren't. You are going to be shook. Okay, I'm just going to tell you. And so, again, if you have any hopes or aspirations where you're creating a path for yourself, you are going to want to keep those things quiet until you decide that you're going to leave. Because there can be some backlash, and it's not right. There's not supposed to be backlash. As long as you're meeting your deadlines and getting your job done. But trust me, everyone won't be ecstatic and happy for you that you actually would have the audacity to go and venture out on your own. All right. The next thing you're going to want to focus on is managing your time effectively. And, Edmund Learning has a class for that. Which actually we have on sale through the end of this month. Starting May 1st, actually the price goes up. It actually doubles. It's on sale for 50% off. I think $750 for a 10-week course that's self-guided with individualized coaching. But you're going to want to make sure that you acquire those time management skills, because when you're managing your own business, like, you create the deadlines. You're the one that has to motivate and get yourself up and going in the morning, right? You have to decide, what your deliverables are going to be. There's not anyone that's going to be pushing you. You have to be the person to push yourself. And so you need to identify where you have distractions. Are you on social media too much during the day? Are you constantly checking emails? You need to identify like those things that could be a hindrance for your time, and get those under control, and put some things in place that we actually teach in that leadership development time management course that can actually help you along the way. You're also going to want to prepare for emotional ups and downs. Starting a business can be an emotional roller coaster. You may experience feelings of excitement, fear, and uncertainty along the way. So it's important to be prepared for these feelings and to have a support system in place to help you through the tough times. Okay. You're also going to want to talk to your family and friends. Now, it's natural to feel nervous about telling them about your business plans, but it's important to be honest with them. Now, let me preface this and say, this word of advice I would keep for like a spouse, and then possibly your children if they're old enough to even understand. I actually would reserve, like the same way that you're going to keep things quiet with those coworkers, you need to do with your family. Because again, for some individuals, especially a lot of us, like people of color, like for those of us that have gone off to school, again, like you have to realize, like, and again, I know for some people it kind of, I have to stop doing this, but again, I know for some people it may come off a certain way, but I have an onus and a commitment to be honest and transparent with you guys. The reality is, your uncle that's working at the small town factory making $26,000 a year, who sees you, who have surpassed your dreams, his dreams, your grandparents' dreams, everybody's dreams. Let's say you're making 200, 300, 400K a year, stock options, everything, you got it. they aren't going to understand. Like, it's going to sound crazy to them. Why would you want to go on your own, right? You're already going to have some self-doubts yourself, and you're going to have those moments where it may not seem like things are working out for you, but you're going to know in your heart, like, I know I heard from God, like, that this is the move I need to make. But you will still, you're human. You still will have those moments where you have some self-doubt. You don't need other people in your ear questioning, people who can't even understand, right? They'll never even ever be able to understand, right? And so you don't need to go sharing your plans and your thoughts and ideas or your life, if especially if they're not paying your bills. You need to talk to your spouse. Like, if you have a spouse or, a close significant other for whom they will be impacted, you need to have a conversation with them. Like, one of my other businesses in the financial services sector, like, sometimes we have these periods of time where, like, we have these goals, like, that we're trying to meet, and some people really go hard at them. And so again, we talk about mindset with that, and again, they do a really great job, like, with training around this, really pulling your family, like your immediate, like your spouse and your kids, in with it, because it's going to change. Like, your commitment to your goals will change their life, whether for that month or whatever, while you're working toward these goals, because you may find you're working longer hours or what have you, right? And so you need to pull them on board too and explain, hey, mommy's going to be working a little bit later in the evenings, and to your, especially like to your husband, right? To your significant other, to your boo thing. Ladies, you have to have that conversation, like, in that heads up, look, I'm grinding, I'm out here getting it. I may only be able to cook 2 or 3 times a week, right, for the next couple months. I'm working hard to get this off the ground. Like, there's some days I'm going to need you to pitch in, or like you to be okay with us ordering some things in, like, my commitment is I'm going to make sure you eat. I'm going to make sure you have a meal. It's not going to be a home cooked meal every night, but I'm committed to making sure that you got something in your tummy, right? And the reality is, your hands aren't broke either, Like, you can get in the kitchen and help cook something too, or even just with the like the upkeep of the house. Like, again, going into it, having that conversation, that upfront conversation. Hey, I'm gonna be preoccupied. I'm working from like 7, 8 to about 10, 11, 12 at night. You see it. So we gonna have to bring some help in, right, to help keep this house clean, or, like, we're going to break up some of the tasks and split them amongst ourselves. But being able to get alignment there, it's going to cut down on a lot of confusion. And the reality too, like, I think many of us, as we go through these different transitional periods, sometimes we may find out the person that we're partnered with or paired with is not a fit for our future, but for the future that God is calling us for. And you need to move appropriately. That's all I'm going to say there. But if I can just leave you with this, one of you need to remember that starting a business while you're still working in corporate America is a big decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. So you want to take the time to carefully consider your options and to plan your move carefully. With the right preparation and support, you can successfully launch your own business while still maintaining your corporate career. Now, I'll tell you, I am so proud because, again, like, we all have our different callings and our ministries that often spark or come from our own experiences. And sometimes those experiences that weren't glamorous, or where we were kind of mistreated or had to go through some struggles. For me, again, because I transitioned from corporate America, from a high level or role within corporate America, I feel like that is another niche that God has given me. And so he's starting to pair me with clients for whom I'm able to understand and even in some cases minister and really provide solutions, more importantly, for them, right? And so I invite you, again, if you are someone, first of all, I encourage you, if you're in corporate America still, begin to do some self-reflection and really identify what your skills and resources are in areas that you're able to grow and upskill in. You need to meet with me, or you need to meet with somebody like a CEO driver when she starts having appointments again, um, to be able to really talk through what would a business look like for me. My perspective and my conversations with folks, especially if they're still in the corporate world, again, it is one understanding from that HR vantage point, some of the tricks and things that can go on behind closed doors, right? That can be a hindrance to you. And so giving you some of that insight to be able to look for where shady things may start to be happening, because maybe the word has gotten out that, oh, I think she's doing something on her own, or making sure that, again, if the business or venture that you're hitting off into actually has some potential overlap or the appearance of some potential overlap, being proactive and maybe confidentially going directly to your boss and suggesting, like I did that with my last role, we drew up a confidentiality agreement and we drew up a non-compete clause, just stating that I wouldn't take on clients in the same industry for which we were in, right? And so that way we had an understanding and they understood and knew that, hey, I'm not here to try to steal your clients away from you. I'm here to contribute and to help upgrade the organization. But I do have this other business venture that I'm building too on the side. So again, handling things in that mature form, I think, are going to work in your favor. For one client, I am so happy. Like, we have partnered with her to be able to help her, with her dream, right? She wanted to keep her other business going, but she's in corporate America in a very high level role. And those roles take up your time. Sometimes it's by design. And so my team has been able to provide a solution for her to be able to slightly change the way in which she provides services, which is more of a training, self-guided method, where we're able to help develop those materials and things for her so she can keep her business going while she is still in the corporate world doing her thing, right? And so I am so happy that, again, I have the foresight and the insight to be able to even have the thought to do that. And I'm thankful too that, I do have individuals on my team that also, have that same mindset and foresight too. And they understand, again, like our jobs and our career now is not just merely around, like, we're providing HR solutions, right? So that's why I've changed my language from, an HR service provider. No, we're an HR solutions provider, right? And, we're an answer to pain points. We're an answer to some of the problems, whether it's a large firm, a large corporation, or somebody that's just in startup mode. We're a resource. And in some cases, as of recent, we've been put in positions where we truly are able to help bring others' dreams to lives and partner with them and walk side by side. And so that is invaluable to me. It's so rewarding. And so, again, I just say to you, if you've had any thoughts of going into business for yourself or becoming an entrepreneur, don't just shun those away. Actually start to explore them, do your due diligence, do some planning, have some conversations, even if you set up a consultation so that you can understand, like, what are some of the steps that I need to take to even kind of get started, to work on a plan where I am able to move out of the world system or away from corporate America in 2 years, but begin to develop a path forward with a trusted individual who is able to be an advisor to you and give you like some true accurate advice, right? And just keep in mind, like, things don't happen overnight. You know, like Big Sean says it best. I guess it took 10 years for me to be an overnight success. People will look at your success, they'll see the success, and they will assess, like, wow, things just happen for her quickly. Like, I can't even believe it's like everything happens so easily for her. And they don't even realize, like, you've been working at this for the past 10, 15, 20 years. This is 20 years in the making, my goodness. And so you can't get thrown off of your goals by listening to people that just won't understand, or letting people speak into your life that really mean you no good. Because again, in some cases, for some individuals, they're coming from a vantage point of someone that's hurt, that has to look themselves in the mirror and explain to themselves why they keep giving up on their dreams and themselves, right? And so merely looking at you that has the audacity and the tenacity to go after those goals and dreams, it stirs up something negative inside of them. And so all we can do is just pray for them that they will receive some deliverance in that area of their life. And we have to keep it moving, because that's not our fight. That's not our battle to fight, right? But begin to focus your attention on how you're able to be used to make a difference in this world, how you're able to be used to help upskill and upgrade others, and leave your focus there. And work on yourselves. Make sure that you're getting the business coaching that you need. Make sure that you're getting the financial advisement that you need, so that you can have your paperwork and your affairs in order, so that as you're running your business, you are game on, that you are ready for business, and you're not out here just doing bad business, and that you're attracting the right people that are also doing good business. We're in a season that, again, the economy is shifting, as I've been saying over the last year, right? Now we're in a season where some of the money has started to draw up. So some of these Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube gurus, they're starting to be exposed, right? Because some of them have been robbing Peter to pay Paul. They've been sliding money back and forth. Like I said, some of this money starts to look funny when you get up right next to it, right? You start to get to see who's who and what's what. And see, some of this stuff has been smoke and mirrors. It has been a circus the last few weeks, like in that real estate space, some of these people. And again, I've just found that, like, even when I was at this last conference, right, I have such an aversion to nonsense. Like, I am a businesswoman. You need to understand who you are, what defines you. I am a businesswoman. If I wanted to be in the streets flipping work, I would have my ass in the streets flipping work. But that's not what I'm doing. That has never been my calling. And anyone that actually has been up close and personal, that has loved ones that they've lost to the system, that are actually sitting behind bars now, that aren't able to be with the family or with, the close friend group, we know that that's not where it's at, right? And we're not really trying to glorify that, because we know and we understand that, guess what? God can bless us with the same stuff that they got in the music videos. And we can do it, and we can have it legally, where we don't have to look over our shoulder or wonder if somebody's going to come knock the door down. So that is not of interest to me. And I say that to say, because yet and still, when I was in Miami on business, there were a couple people, again, they're still operating in that vein. And I have no use for that in my life. And we have to have discernment, right? And we have to have a little bit of a backbone to be able to to have some delineation. Everybody can't do business with us. There's some people that just simply aren't going to be able to afford our prices. And there's some people that are just tied to some stuff that we can't get next to. Okay. And some of it, again, people may think that, like, oh, you're being funny or what have you. And it really has nothing to do with it. Baby, it has to do with I'm a grown adult. I'm in my mid 40s, and I know the wealth situation that I am in that actually negates what, some individuals in this country would prefer, my status to be. And I've done it legally. I've done it despite and in spite of the isms, the sexism and the racism. Okay. And so I am not trying to get you caught up with your RICO charge because you're still involved in nonsense, but you're still trying to have one foot in like legitimate business and you want to partner or what have you. Can't partner with Edmund Enterprises. So we have to get some standards about ourselves, right? So when people start coming to you just talking crazy about all this like flipping or we gonna, no, that's not it. You don't want to get yourself attached and caught up in these crazy scenarios. So you want to make sure that you have your things in order. And again, a good way to avoid that is to have your stuff in order, because I'm telling you, those people will run from you. If you have your business set up the right way, where you actually are making people sign contract agreements with you, service agreements with stipulations on paying, you're collecting data, you're collecting EINs and addresses. So if they don't pay, you can simply get your lawyer involved and make sure you get your payments, right? Those people, you'll have business, understand something, because I'm going to tell you how it goes down. You'll have business meetings. Oh, yeah. We can connect. You shoot over, because I use, again, I'm in a mobile space now, right? So I can do business here, there, or anywhere. So again, I'll shoot over a contract for electronic signature. Next thing you know, they backing away. And I used to, again, it's easy to get discouraged, right? But over the last few weeks, God has started, like I said, he started to give me clarity around who my customer truly is and why some of those other customers just weren't a fit. Why things maybe would fall through, like at the point where we get ready to sign contracts to actually do business. Again, structure will weed out some of those people that really aren't ready to do business. It's going to weed out those people that really don't have budget to be able to pay you. And that's a blessing in disguise, because you don't want to do work for people or have your organization doing work for people, and then you're sending invoices and the invoices aren't getting paid. I've been there, done that. Okay. And those are some of the things and growing pains that you may experience when you go out on your own as an entrepreneur. So that's why it's going to be imperative that you have your why intact and you know why you're in this. Because it's not always going to be glitz and glam. Some people, I'm telling you, some people will try to do you dirty. Okay. And so you have to have your wits about yourself and you have to have your own integrity. But I'm telling you, especially in this season, a surefire way to weed out the people that are full of nonsense is really to weed them out. This last exposure thing that has been happening on IG with these real estate deals, do you know they were scribbling stuff down on paper? Sending money via Cash App. What kind of business are you ready for business or not? Again, you don't need to be caught up in that. If someone approaches you and they don't have their stuff tight and in order, they're not ready to do business with you. Just know that. And don't feel bad about it, right? And again, you don't have to, have conflict or a big blowout. For some individuals, they're not ready right now. They may have some growing that they need to do. They may need to close up some other stuff that they're involved in before they can partner. Like one individual, like again, I don't understand why, because I was talking to my assistant, because I had her intern business cards from different people that I met. And again, he tracked me down. This is, oh shoot. If he sees this, he gonna know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I just think not right now, right? But I will tell you, it was funny because I questioned her about, because I thought maybe she didn't enter some information, and if she sees it, she's gonna crack up. But we found the person's business card, and they don't even have a phone number. Or no, they have a phone number, but they don't have an email address. Are you ready for business? I don't understand. Like some of this stuff, I don't understand. And I think I'm at the point now where I'm starting to get okay with not understanding and not having an explanation. I used to be this person that needed an explanation, but I think I'm starting to get to a point where for some of this nonsense, I don't even need to know. I've seen all that I need to see. Again, even the conference, right? A business conference, and they put on every email, on all the literature, they kept telling you how to dress. Business casual. That's not these Amazon dresses with cutouts seeing your body. Like, I don't even understand where the confusion came from and why you would show up and walk yourself. You know what? I'm about to go. Again, this has been Lamborghini_C. Thank you for joining my channel. Hopefully, I know I went on a little bit of a tangent, but hopefully you guys will be able to take and pick out some, some useful things, again, around just that whole mindset and transition from going from corporate to entrepreneurship, and really following your dreams, but setting yourself up for success financially, mentally, as well as making sure that you're in a good space in your corporate job, right? So that you're not creating disturbance there because you merely want to follow your dream. Again, if you have questions or you want to meet with myself or any of the members from my team, you can reach out to us at edmund-enterprises.com. You can send a quick note to info@edmund, EDMUND-enterprises.com, and we will get back to you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.